Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We have interesting day today. Shaun was early,
3
and
minutes early.
we are on time right now. I don't even know what to do right now.
Mega.
I'm usually in a rush. There's things that are happening. I got to get stuff going and all these things, but no, we're good. We're
I
good.
know.
I'm
And
like,
I showing up 3 minutes early with my live IG chat out of the way at 1000 hours to 1100 hours, and us starting here at 1200 hours PST. There's so much time between the two potties that I showing up 3 minutes early for this one felt like I was showing up yesterday. So much time. It's like today is Saturday. I've got 3 minutes. I'm so early. It's Saturday, not Sunday.
yes. What are we going to do for 3 minutes? And then we just sat awkwardly and stared at each other for a while.
We did not. You started telling me about your BJJ, which we'll talk
Yes.
about here in a sec
Yeah.
as soon as you hit that subscribe button.
Well, I was gonna, because the more people that know about jujitsu are going to be like, ooh, a lot of those guys in the collective, they're talking about jujitsu. Maybe I should subscribe to them. Maybe I should like the show. Maybe I should hit the notification bell so that I am notified every time they go live with an email. Exactly. With the finger guns. I mean, little Yosemite Sam going on. But absolutely do that, and you will get an email every day from the collective with eyes like this.
I probably get one. I
think you
just
do.
ignore it.
I think I do too. It's all good. But I saw you were doing BJJ yesterday.
That's right.
Was he a newbie
Young
or
Simon.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah, good.
Tell us
He's
about it.
been on our mats a bunch of times. He's been on the mats over the last few years. He's just completed his first year of university out in Kelowna, and he's just back to Roslyn for the summer. And so that's great. He's a good kid, man. Not only is he a good kid, he's got a good spirit. He's respectful. He's kind of a bit of a gentle soul to some degree. Like he cares about his performance. He cares about what people think. He does his best. He wants to be better, et cetera, et cetera. And I love working with people who want to be better. It's awesome. He's a good kid.
Yeah. How'd the roll go though? Like, were you just decide, hey, welcome back. I'm going to choke the life out of you now.
Now that's our. So I rolled with him on. I guess it was on Wednesday. Was his first day back on the mat since he came back from university. And like I said, I've rolled with him a bunch of times in the past. Every time he's in town, since he's been a young kid. And our rolls yesterday. So the first roll, I never have a plan, and my warm up consists of like putting my mouthpiece in. And as he was stretching, I was like, "Let's go," and so we tap bumped, and I still had no plan. And so he grabbed my wrist. I grabbed his wrist. He grabbed my hand. I grabbed his hand. Now I've got a 2-on-1. And so from within about a second of us tapping and bumping, his first move was to use his left hand to grab my hand. I was like, all right, now for the rest of the roll, I'm just going to play with his left arm. So if you go back and watch that, there's some footage there, and you'll see that it's not that I'm hyper focusing on his arm. I'm just amusing myself with, can I use just between his wrist to his shoulder to control him the entire roll?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, what he's doing is he doesn't know what I'm doing. I had to brief him afterwards to say, my plan was determined based on this, Simon. What's the first thing Simon's going to touch me with? That's what I'm going to play with. And so watching the video, then he could see what I was doing, and he could see how he was either under or over responding to something that he didn't understand, when in fact, if he could just like separate himself from the moment, he would be able to ascertain that all the action that I'm providing is occurring between here and here.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see that. It's hard to feel that. It's hard to know that when, as he stated, most of the time I don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's that's it's actually one of the things I've been working on with during my Sunday classes when I'm teaching some of the junior white belts. We were working on judo today and talking about Kuzushi and being able to utilize the other person's movements and all these other things. And I figured, this is a great topic anyway that we could talk about just in general, because it applies so much to life.
It does.
That I think it'd be a good topic in general. But the the response I get a lot from the white belts is like, well, how do I get out of X? And the standard answer is don't get there, because you've allowed 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 things to happen before you even get there, and then you're realizing that you need to escape versus the steps beforehand.
But I never liked that answer.
I,
I hear that answer all the time,
me too.
and I think it's the worst answer ever. I think
Mhm.
it's a lazy answer. Don't get there. Yeah, okay, cool tip. How did that help me? And so it's what I feel it is more correctly is it should be used as an overarching theme
Yeah.
that is just such a big concept that it means nothing. You can use it as an overarching theme as in, oh yeah, just don't get choked out. Cool. How do I do that? That's the outcome that you're seeking is
Yeah.
not to get choked out. That isn't how you get there.
No.
That's the end state that you're trying to figure out. And so there are some steps that occur before that. And I
One
think
or
that's
two,
far
yeah.
more important.
100%. And one of the things that I was talking about today was um, letting be like understanding what is. And I think this is where we get trapped up a lot is, you're passing my guard. And I get so intent on the fact that you're passing my guard and I'm fighting the pass and I'm fighting the pass and I'm fighting the pass and I'm fighting the pass. And all I'm doing is just sinking it in, sinking it in, sinking it in, getting that, taking more and more, more and more of my position when your guard is already passed like a while ago. And had you accepted that, oh, okay, it's passed, and immediately start working on an escape or start working on another movement or using the Kuzushi, right? As I'm pushing, you can go over that kind of stuff. That's what we were talking about today in class. And we were really discussing the fact that it's not about, being able to understand that this move leads to that move, that leads to this move, da, 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 da. It's just accepting what is and moving on instead of trying to hold on to that thing that just like, oh, I can't let this happen. And then it happens anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's literally what Simon and I talked about yesterday. So the second role that we did was a little more intense. And as he stated, and it was pretty evident to me, he wanted to test himself.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to see what he could do against someone who is putting it to him. And so he got it put to him. And so the idea being that as he ramped it up, as he started getting scrappier, he was clinging to things more and more. And that's an important distinction. The Kuzushi aspect, you can never know that you're out of balance until you realize that you're out of balance. And how do you realize that? It takes sensitivity. And so you learn Kuzushi or balance by falling over initially.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, you don't have to fall over to understand balance. You understand balance through the gravitational pull of the earth, and you understand when the planet stops turning just because you're that nuanced, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't have that. No newbie has that. No one has nuance when they first begin. And because they don't understand Kuzushi or their own balance, never mind someone injecting Kuzushi into them, they don't understand enough to know what's happening, and therefore, ironically, they can't move with Kuzushi because they're so busy clinging to not moving. And so, as part of our conversation yesterday, after the first roll, we watched the video. Second roll, we watched the video. So we're always reviewing. And in part of the rule, Simon pointed out, so I got your leg and I isolated your leg and I was clamping it with both of my feet and I felt I had a pretty good position there. And I looked at him and I said, nope. Actually, what was happening there, Simon, is I was leaving my leg dangling around and there to give you something to focus on, to give you something to pinch with your legs, to cling to, so that you felt you had something on the go. And anytime your grip weakened and my leg would start slipping out, I fed my leg back into it to give you something to focus on as I was choking you out. So, do you understand that the prioritization of clinging to my leg was incorrect? The prioritization should have been to address that thing snaking around your neck. And so that's just noobs, man. You know, it's Simon's a smart kid and he knows what's what. It's just that he never would have done that if we were just flow rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But pressure adjusts mindset. And that person who feels comfortable sauntering down the street can't saunter when all the weight of the world is on their shoulders. That pressure that they're not used to. Now they're not sauntering.
They're trudging.
Now they're crawling.
Yeah. Like when you're breaking trail in snow, that lead guy is not having a good day. Like that's not fun. And you are literally trudging through all of the weight that you're carrying, plus all the stuff, plus all the snow, plus the weather, plus the because you're in front, it's all up in your head too, right? Just like, oh my God, it hurts and everything's
and there's no
tired,
end.
and there's no end.
There's no end because you don't know the
telling
end.
you when to stop.
Because you're the guy up front who doesn't know anything. That's why you're up there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's such a key thing to apply to life in that. You know, one of the things that we did today, actually, we were making fun of it because it kind of looks like, you know, like dancing when you're in grade 8, right? We were doing traditional judo grips, and we were just walking around nice and loose, and
bonk, step, bonk.
And so what I got them to do was get your grips, close your eyes, and just move around, and just feel for those moments when that one leg steps out, or when the weight comes forward, or when it comes back, and all that. We spent probably 5-6 minutes just dancing around on the mats, just waiting for that feeling. And then I was like, okay, now we're going to introduce the movement. So now I want you to activate a movement rather than just feel the movement. I want you to get a step ahead. And then one of the students is he's a music teacher. So he was having trouble kind of getting the timing down, and we're like, you have to introduce a 3/4 timing into a 4/4 timing.
You should have just set a metronome up on the side.
Oh, we should have. That's a great idea. I should have
tell him to bring his metronome next time.
I think
that is now you're recruiting like he's leadership by exampling himself. He's
well, and this is so the thing that we really worked on today was finding that balance and realizing when you were off balance, because that was more of the key. Was like the concept that I had learned at the instructor seminar that I'd just been at, but it was all about, you know, if I want something, I have to give the opposite to get it.
Yeah, right? Well, not always, but
not always, but mostly.
It's an opening strategy. Yeah.
So if I want you to push back into me, well, I'm going to push you, and then you're going to push back, because the natural instinct is to meet force with force. Right? If I pull on you, you're going to pull back to keep your base. If I push on you, you're going to push back to keep your base. And so I think this happens in life a lot of times, especially in my experience. When I would push hard in order to get something, the world pushes back. Right? It's hard to do. There's things that get in your way. And there were times that I just kept pushing. There were times that I just moved out of the way and like laterally stepped around it, still achieved my goal, but in a different angle. There's other times that I just had to like give up, which was not a smart plan. But I think realizing that happens allows us to then make plans for when it does happen next.
I agree. However, I would say this, that I feel that you can't learn how to do Kuzushi in the world by working with an inanimate object.
Yeah.
And so if it's an institution, or if it's a company, or if it's a car, or if it's a dog, not a dog, if it's your house that won't fix itself.
Yeah.
These are things that you can try to push against, but you're getting no feedback on it. It's an inanimate object. You don't get a feedback loop. Whereas if you're trying to understand Kuzushi for the first time, and now you're doing it with a person for the first time, they can guide you literally like a dance partner to help you understand Kuzushi or balance, or when to push and when not to, when to fade and when not to, when to remain neutral and when to let it move all around you. That can only be learned with someone who knows how to dance.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to understand balance in your life, a good place to start is on the mats rather than being out in the world and trying to figure out your balance against inanimate objects called institutions.
Mm-hmm. Or or things that are seemingly insurmountable too. For instance, one of the professors at that we have is I think he's a 3rd-degree black belt, massive dude, 265, power lifter,
Oh, yeah.
wrestler.
He readjusted your intercostal muscles on your rib cage.
Oh boy, did he ever! And there was a point where we were rolling and we were starting in mount, so you had to start with a mount escape, and
Mhm.
all of the skills and all of the things that are in my head of different mount escapes that I know weren't working
Mhm.
because he just
Was
locked down.
when he locked you down, was he giving you a little bit of shoulder of justice, or was he creating a little bit of suffocation, or was
No,
he was just locking you down and being
just
gentle?
no, he wasn't quite being gentle, but he also wasn't being. He was being very neutral,
Okay,
and
so he wasn't trying to invoke a little bit of um, uh, negative
pa-
response from you.
panic or fear or anything.
Mhm.
No, he
Okay.
was just kind of hanging out there. But he was so adept at every time I would any placement that I tried to do or tried to create, he would just flow onto the opposite side of it. So he was utilizing Kuzushi as I was trying to escape in order to lock down each one of those steps.
Mhm.
And so it felt to me like I was just hitting a wall everywhere I went.
Mhm.
Bang, 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 bang. It was just keep smashing on that wall. But the thing that I didn't think of was going the opposite direction. Right? I was trying to push him away, or I was trying to get down and
Oh,
you know
yeah.
versus trying to go under, or the fact that I wasn't recognizing that he was neutral
Or simply just connecting to him.
or connecting. Yeah, exactly. I could have
Like,
latched onto
becoming
him and
part of him to
yeah,
log roll or to whatever, like,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so the
if he's connecting, you connect to him.
yeah,
If he's creating distance, you can now
I can
create
create
distance.
distance, absolutely. And but I was so focused. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
so focused on, there's the hip escape, and you got to get your lock up and you get your arms extended, and then you push. But he's 265
But
and a wrestler. Like he
you
knows how to
were
move his body.
you were focusing on technique.
Technique,
You weren't
exactly. I wasn't
focusing on
feeling
the feel. Yeah,
exactly.
on the force.
And so I think that that's an important thing because I
It is.
at the time I wasn't recognizing what was. I was
Right.
I was trying to, remember what I was supposed to do. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have
Well,
to do
hang on a
this, blah
sec.
blah.
You were recognizing something, or
Yeah.
what was, we'll call it. And then you were running through your Rolodex of, we'll call them solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Technique A. I'm going to try that now. Move into the future. Failed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here I am again. I recognize where I am. Same place.
Mm-hmm.
Off to Rolodex option B. Oh, that didn't work. And that's another 5 seconds to 10 seconds of,
Mm-hmm.
I'm back here. And so you recognized where you were, but what you were doing was you're going out and looking for rote or preconceived patterns
Yeah.
that have either solved it all in the past, or you feel they're going to solve it all in the future. And it is a bit of problematic when someone is a technical relier or reliant on technique. When they can't solve the problem in the moment, they go to technical Rolodex.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with technical Rolodex, as you have said, is you lose feel.
Yeah.
You go to the textbook rather than to the moment. So you were in the moment and then out of the moment.
Exactly.
Then in the moment, then out of the moment.
Yeah.
But you're spending more time out of the moment than you were in the
Yeah.
moment,
And I was
trying to solve the moment.
and I was using so much energy
Oh, no doubt.
to try and solve the moment without actually being in the moment. Right.
For sure.
I was in the next step. I was like, I know that I plant my frames here and I push here and I do these things, and then that leg should pop up, and then I should be able to. And I was 3, 4, 5, 7 moves out instead
Mhm.
of just feeling that moment and just moving on, moving
Exist
with it.
with him.
Exactly. And it was
Interact with him.
this second or third roll we did like that, where I started to go, all right, I see what I'm doing now.
Right,
And
right
then
after your third trip back from the bathroom to get your act together.
yeah. And then, well, the funny thing was is that the people that, so we were in a 3-man group, and this is kind of besides the point, but it leads to the story, is that Professor Tyson, the guy that he's massive, great dude, super chill. But the moment I realized that I needed to either attach to him or try to go backdoor or try to move in a different angle, he adjusted too. And then I had to readjust. And then so I was going, by the time we did it the third time, I was going from.
Well, he didn't adjust. You were maladjusting. He was just working the ride controls.
Yes.
I mean, he was literally running the entire video game. You were about
100%.
4 steps behind, trying to apply Generation 1.0 solutions to the Generation 4.0 problem.
Exactly.
And so he was never adjusting to you. In fact, he never even got on the mat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
That was all you all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And the other partner that I had, Professor Tyson had me and mounted on me, and then I had to mount onto one of my training partners, Braven, who's a 19-year-old brown belt and super squirrely and really fast, long and lean, that kind of totally different.
Oh yeah, you described him before, yeah.
Style of game. And I tried to hold him down the best I could. I tried to attach myself to him. I tried to keep him down, tried to keep it like it did all the things again, step by step, the procedures. Plan A is not working. Go to plan B. Plan B is not working.
Yeah,
but
were you connecting to him with plans, or were you connecting to him with real-time feel?
And that's the thing. I was connecting to him with plans.
Yeah.
Versus using the feel. And it wasn't again until the second or third time where I was like, oh, I see what I'm doing here. So now this all applies, and I just want to throw this up here. Daniel, afternoon. My day is going well. I hope yours is going well as well. But the point being is that we latch onto something, right? We get an idea, or we get a goal, or we get this is the way it should work. And then you pressure test that against the world, and the world is going to be like,
you know what you could do? How about pull up my Instagram stories from this morning? I threw up a little gray or black and white slow motion video from yesterday with Simon.
Yep.
And I'll be able to illustrate the point with a little bit of slow moage.
I like it. Let's do it. I will present it.
Use the platform. Ooh. Use the high-tech, high-speed, low-drag platform. Or in this case, it'll be low-speed video to make a high-drag point.
High-drag point. Here we go.
All right.
Okay, so we got...
Now, before you hit play, you'll watch my right arm, and he's really fixated on trying to control my right arm. Don't hit play yet. And so what I do is I play with him. I play with his mind it's almost like a matador with a flag, and the bull's just chasing whatever's being waved in front of it. So most of all, watch my right arm. That's all we need to consider right now.
Raj, let's watch. Oh yeah, and he's just going after it. Chase.
All day long.
Yeah. And you got it locked up on the left side there.
Yeah. There's nothing he can do at this point. I could wave that, and he would chase that arm all day long, just by waving it around. And eventually, I get tired of that game.
And finish the game.
and finish the game. But the point being that I set Simon up to focus on something that was completely unimportant. There's many things that could have been done in that point by him or by me, but because essentially what I did was freeze time in that sense by giving him something to focus on, which doesn't allow him to move any further, doesn't allow him to progress as a person in the moment. Because I'm waving a red flag around as a distraction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because he's got his hand on it and he thinks he's got control, and
Oh, for
then you
sure.
take it away, and now he's like, "Oh no, I need to get that hand
Need
back.
to
I need
get
to
it
get that
back.
hand
I
back."
don't know why I need to get it back, but I'm gonna go behind my own back to get that thing.
Hmm. And then easy swim for you
Easy
once you come
swim.
back inside and sink in that choke. Bang. I like it.
And again, it's not that I was putting it on him hard or being. I mean, it's just BJJ, pretty
Yep.
casual. But the point being that in his focus to try to like maximize his efforts to control the situation, he just really needed to focus on a thing.
Yeah.
He didn't know what, but by focusing on a thing, now he feels like he's kind of in control of his destiny, which is back to Kuzushi, which is back to what we were originally talking about. The only way that you can understand your own personal balance is to go test your balance. And if you don't know how to do that, well, find someone who can test your balance and show you how you can learn to balance on 2 feet, and then learn how to balance on 1 foot, and then learn how to balance on just a hand, kind of like all Jedi and stuff.
Hmm.
I believe Luke Skywalker bounces on one hand
Yeah,
there in the
one
swamps of
handed.
Tatooine. Maybe, I don't know.
Dagobah, thank you very much.
Dagobah. That's right. That's right. I almost blew that. As I said, I was like, I'm blowing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the idea being that, because in absence of anything to do, he's doing something. And the something that he's doing is wrong, but that's all he
Yeah.
knows how to do. And so I'm going to obviously create that and take advantage of that because I understand the game a little bit deeper than he does. But that's like
Absolutely.
all of us, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I had this discussion, well, not quite this discussion, but a similar discussion with my son Arden. We were walking home from a restaurant, and I was saying, why do I work out? And he goes, to get strong. I goes, okay, well, what happens then? I become strong. Why do I want to be strong? He goes, well, because you can always get better, right? I'm like, yeah, that's true. What does that actually mean? What does me being
Is he going
stronger
to
mean?
beat you to the answer before you beat your own answer to the answer? Is your son going to beat you to the answer?
No.
Okay.
But I played with him a little bit on this, and we kind of discussed it, and we basically came down to the conclusion was that the reason why we do something is important, right? Because we could just do stuff for the sake of doing stuff, like reaching out for a hand, just for the sake of reaching out for a hand, right? Because you feel like you need to do something, but there are times where you need to just sit and wait, sit and watch, sit and observe, feel, right? And that, I think, is the key point of Kuzushi, is the fact that it is a intentional thing. Right? You don't just gain an awareness of Kuzushi, you have to seek it out.
You do.
And you have to seek it out in life, you have to seek it out in BJJ, you have to seek it out on the mats. And if you don't know how to do it, as you said, find somebody that does.
Well,
And then
what you're
watch.
seeking is to feel.
Yeah.
But initially, as you're seeking, you can't feel anything. It's like the students that you were working with, step, 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 step. They don't understand what's going on. They think they're feeling something because step, I feel a step. Oh, I just stepped again. There's my third step. I'm feeling things. Yay, I understand Kuzushi. No, you don't. But in order to understand it, first you've got to realize that you don't understand it. And many people who are in this moment now where they need to do something. They need to control that arm. I don't know why I need to control that arm, but I need to control that arm. They're so focused on trying to do something. They can't feel themselves because they don't know their own Kuzushi. They can't feel the other person because they don't understand another person's Kuzushi. And therefore, it's just lashing out with ill-conceived ideas with no basis on understanding the feel of the moment. And I don't know about you, buddy, but feel to me is what BJJ is all about. That's how I do good BJJ. But well before BJJ existed as a twinkle in my eye, feel was always a thing for me anyway. So I've understood its importance for a long time. It's just that BJJ helps people understand that a whole lot faster than having to do some of the things that I've done pre BJJ.
Yeah. I think it's also a like it's a learned skill, right? It's
It
not
is.
something that you can just, oh, I get it now. Of course, push pull, right? Of course, yeah, no, I totally understand. It really is. It's a nuanced skill set that you have to develop, and you will get better at it over time with practice. And that was one of the things I was talking with Arden, was the fact that he had said something about, um, or I had said, oh, Braven, my training partner, he beats me regularly. Is he stronger than I am? And Arden was like, yeah. And I'm like, he's not. Like, I can do more push-ups than he can. I can bench press. Like, I can do all these things. Technically, I'm stronger than he is. But why does he beat me every time? Well, he's better than you. Is he actually better? Or has he just been doing this longer? Is he more skilled, or is he just have more practice? And so I think that there's a lot of times in our lives where we look at the world outside of ourselves and go, oh, well, that person's just better than I am, or that thing is too hard, or that thing is too easy, instead of looking at it in terms of a knowledge base and experience based system rather than better or worse. If you get what I'm saying.
I do, 100%.
Yeah. So I think that as a mental exercise, anytime someone were to say, I do this myself, when I catch myself saying, oh, well, he's better than I am, or this thing is going to take too long, or it's too hard, or I don't know how to do that. I don't know yet, or I don't have the knowledge yet, or I don't have the experience that that person does. And it eliminates a form of judgment, which is based off of an assumption to begin with.
That's right. But it also eliminates responsibility, unless you tie the sense of prioritization to I do
Yes.
want to be that.
I do want to be
It's
exactly.
easy to say, oh man, I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard it. Well, it's easy to be you. Okay, cool.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. And so whatever the subject is, no one talks about the countless hours of sweat, blood, and tears to become that.
Yep.
And so it looks great when you're toying around with someone on a BJJ mat, but all of that toying around came about because I've been toyed around for thousands of hours,
Yeah.
like a ball of wool
Yep.
by a talented cat. I was the ball of wool. And so the only way to understand how difficult it is to be that is to walk that journey, not stand on the sidelines and point and say, oh, yeah, well, I mean, you got to be in the game to understand the game.
I don't know how many times I've heard somebody say, oh, that person is so talented, I could never be that one, or I could never do that. It's like, it's not talent, it's practice, time,
It's work, man. It's
effort, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's effort.
just putting in I mean, look at Wayne Gretzky. He had the ability to do all kinds of stuff on the ice. But that's because when he was like 3, he was out taking shots at 5 a.m, just like work. He was practicing. Kobe Bryant, same thing. He was always out working all the competition. That's why he was that's why he had the skill that he did.
On my recovery day yesterday, I worked out harder than most people do on their hardest training day.
Exactly.
That's just the way it is, man. You want to proceed ahead. It doesn't do it itself. You literally shape your own life. We all create our own existence. We all forge our own path. And if you're standing on the sidelines thinking that it's all going to show up on a silver platter, you're sorely mistaken. You got to, first of all, go pan for silver. And then you've got to take that silver and you've got to heat it and beat it with a hammer until it turns into a platter. Now you got a silver platter. But that's about a decade of work, maybe, to learn how to find silver, to learn how to heat it properly, to learn how to pound on it, and then learn how to make it a platter.
Yeah.
You don't do that all in a morning.
Nope.
Nor do you become a world champion in anything in a morning. You put your boots on and you go find a river and you start mining for silver or whatever.
Yep.
And that's just life, man. You want to get good at BJJ? Put your boots on, drive to a club, and start day one.
Day 1 turns into day 10, and that turns into day 200, and that turns into day 500, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
But only if you stop telling yourself, it must be nice to be that guy.
Exactly.
You got to change it all around and say,
Yep.
that guy demonstrates that it's possible. I'm going to go get that.
Oh, yeah. Like 6 years ago, let's say 6 years ago, I knew nothing about BJJ other than the fact that it existed. Hadn't even walked into a club at that point in time. I was still listening to Jocko talk about it. I'm like, oh yeah, everyone should do jiu-jitsu. Everyone should do jiu-jitsu. I never even touched it. I was just like, never even conceptualized it. Well, I was jiu-jitsu 100%. And it was through the time and the effort and the daily, I keep going to class and I keep showing up and I keep going in there open-minded. I keep looking to learn, and I'm not looking at anybody else on the mats going, man, I wish I was that guy.
I bet you did.
No, I did not.
I'm not saying all the time.
No, but I don't recall. Oh, I might have. I don't recall doing
Guaranteed
it.
you did. Everyone does. I mean, I do. Everyone does. I've never met a guy who doesn't think, I'd like to be that guy. I mean, you've never thought that?
I'm not saying think of a time.
I'm not saying become their clone.
No, I can't think of a time where there's been times where I've been like, I wish I could do that.
Right.
It's like the thing that guy could do.
What he represents, not be him. I don't want to be Jim, whoever Jim is. That's not my point, obviously.
Dang Jim.
But I think that everyone at some point has thought, I'd like to be that guy. Whatever that means to them.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Okay.
again,
I could see that.
Not Jim.
Yeah.
And so whatever he is or whatever he does or whatever he represents to each person in that moment of, I'd like to be that dude. And that doesn't mean that I want to be specifically him. I want to be a version of that so that I can do those kind of things. I mean, there's loads of kids out there. You used Wayne Gretzky as the example. Line up the amount of kids that play hockey that would put their hand up and say, I don't want to be Wayne Gretzky.
Right.
There won't be too many hands that go up, even though they don't know what Wayne Gretzky is. They just know what he represents. They don't know where he lives. They just know that he played hockey well, and that's what they want to do. And maybe they've seen some footage on him making his Wayne Gretzky moves. Maybe they want to do that, but they don't want to wear the same skate brand.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not about wanting to be Wayne Gretzky. It's wanting to be the close to the avatar for what he represents.
Yeah. The finished product.
To some degree.
And the funny thing is, you mentioned the silver platter, is that with the example that you gave, right? And you find silver and then you heat it up and you pour it out and you hammer it out into the right shape. But that will give you a very ugly silver platter.
For sure.
Right. And then because what it takes after that is polishing and grinding and fine tuning and looking for details and that's the next step, right? There's the initial part of finding the silver. That is the hardest part. That's walking into your first BJJ gym and like swallowing your pride, putting that white belt on and being there ready to learn.
Literally drowning in the river.
Exactly. Literally drowning in the river.
As you're looking for the silver.
Yeah, exactly. And that's your first step. And then you're going to see large leaps in your understanding, right? Because everything's new. It's similar to when we were talking about coffee and you were like, you're going to see these huge jumps of like, measurable distances of like, this is getting better. And now this is getting better. And now this is getting better. And nutrition, strength, all these things. But the stage after that is where you start to see less improvement, but you see more detail, you see more fine tuning. And I think that as you understand Kuzushi, it's the same thing in life, is that, we can do something new and you'll see a big change. But then over time, you'll see less and less change. But you have to start seeking out the nuances of those changes. And you have to start seeking those smaller upgrades and those smaller changes, because you have when you see the way broadly, you can see it in all things, but you still need to be able to focus on what your way is. If that makes sense. I think I went on a little rant there, but
yeah, it makes sense for sure. And I think probably doing something with this, using your example of then having to take the platter and grind it and polish it and turn it into a shiny silver platter. Even when you get your platter and it's looking pretty grotty, it's not looking at all like a platter. It's general shape. It's totally dull. It's got pits and pocks and scars on it and whatever. At that point, that's your platter, man. I mean, that's it. That's you. And I know that at this point, anyone who's put the work in to create an ugly platter wouldn't exchange, people that I know anyway, wouldn't exchange that ugly platter for the shiniest platter in the world that was made by someone else.
yeah,
Because that's your platter, man. Take pride in it. I mean, you put the work in to create the ugliest platter in the world, but with some more time, you'll turn it into something that will never be the most beautiful platter in the world, except to you, which you would never exchange ever for any other platter in the world, even if it doesn't look that nice to everyone else, or even to you for that matter. It's an earned platter, not a gifted platter.
100%. And and then by the time you actually get yourself a platter, by the time you have one and you're like, ooh, look at my nice shiny platter, there's going to be someone on the sidelines going, that's a piece of garbage. Or, oh, I wish I had my own silver platter. And then that whole cycle starts over again. Is that it is like I said earlier, it is a learned skill. And it is
no, there's still a little piece of the cycle left. I'll see if you can figure out what that last little phase of the cycle is. Any ideas? So you had your ugly platter. Now you've got your shiny platter. What's the next step?
The next step is doing it again and making a better platter. No,
because let's pretend you only get one platter. Let's just keep it
I only
simple.
get one.
I'm going to try to help you out on this one.
Okay,
I'm going to try to narrow the constraints so that maybe you can guess this last phase of the cycle. So you've made your platter, whether it's ugly or not doesn't matter at this point. You've got your platter. Then what?
I would, in my mind, I would keep working on it. I would keep developing it. I would keep finding new places to make it better. So
now it's the shiniest platter in the world. Then
shiniest platter in the world? Make a gold one? I'm not quite sure.
Okay, now I'm going to give you another hint. I just want to see if I want to get you there. Maybe.
Okay. I appreciate it.
What do you use platters for?
To put food on.
And?
To deliver it to other people.
And what does that mean?
It means that I can then show other people the skill set that I've developed and possibly teach them.
Shazam.
Pass it on to the next generation.
Look at that. Build a platter. Serve knowledge with your platter.
There's a little mind blown. Again, we need a little mic drop thing like this to. You're absolutely right in the fact that there's going to be a point where there's also this point too, is that as people see you make your own platter, they're going to want to start learning.
Yeah, for sure, buddy. Also, when someone sees you as the inviting people into your celebration, we'll call it, and as you're serving the platter out and guests are taking that is also a moment when people out there who aren't at the celebration look in on the celebration and say, wow, I wish I had some of that baklava. Oh, that looks amazing. I wouldn't mind tasting that. And so you lead the way by demonstrating how to make a platter. You lead the way by demonstrating that platter can now serve others.
And I think actually this is goes back into the line of Kuzushi, is that you're creating an energy, right, of forward movement. You're pushing into the world of,
well, you're not creating energy.
I guess molding energy is a better.
I mean, if we're keep it clean by physics, we can't create. What we're doing is we're shaping,
molding.
We're manipulating. We're using. more correctly.
Yes. And then we're utilizing that in order to create movement or develop
Create
energy response from other people. And by utilizing your own energy to do that, you can lead by example. And then they can follow along. And unfortunately, not everybody's going to follow. There's going to be people out there that are looking in the window going, I wish I had baklava, and I wish it must be nice to have a silver platter, without any knowledge of how you actually got there. And there's lots of people
or even what baklava tastes like.
Yeah, without any knowledge of that either, or without any knowledge of really anything. They just look at it and say, must be nice to have all that. And by actually doing that, you're throwing up a wall in front of yourself.
You are.
Which is kind of silly.
It's a bummer. It's a bummer. And it's the irony is that it's a bummer for me to think that there's people out there who can't get beyond the point of realizing that if you just surrendered your ego and went out there and really tried to improve yourself in a bunch of aspects, you'd see the path clearly for what it is. You'd start getting better. But the problem is that the reluctance to accept that you're not in a good position, that you're not Mr. Self-Defense, or that you're not whatever that you think
you don't know my mentality, bro.
That's right. The idea being that if you think you're already the silver platter, you'll never put your boots on and go mine for silver in a river.
That's very true. It's it's kind of funny also is the fact that, at least this is funny to me, I'm not a big fan of the word surrender. And the reason I'm not, even surrendering your ego, I don't like it because it means giving up on. Right? You are completely.
It's a strong word.
It is a strong word.
Used for a reason.
Yeah, okay. I personally prefer the term reining in. Like, you have to rein in your ego, because to surrender to it, or to surrender it entirely, kind of negates the positive portions of your ego. Because there are positive sides
it does, for sure, for someone who understands nuance. Which probably wasn't you some time ago in the past.
True. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And so, for who I'm addressing right now is folks who can't see the way forward because they're blinding themselves. And so you can't apply a tiny little recalibration for someone who doesn't want to hear anything. You can't say, well, just apply a little tiny tweak in this moment if they don't believe that any of this works. And so sometimes you got to use strong language, strong words, plant a seed in someone's mind that they've just got to surrender what they're doing. Change it all, give it up, however you want to term it. Yeah. Something, I won't say radical, because radical is a strong word, but something that is way out of your normal scope of how to fix things, or your normal way of operating in life, or your completely different way of approaching something, a problem, a puzzle, the thing. Sometimes it requires radical thought to create radical change.
I do like that a lot. In that
that doesn't apply to you.
No,
right
I know.
Now.
Yeah. No,
I mean, it's important that everyone understands how things apply to them in each moment, in each subject, in each phase of their life, etc.
Absolutely. And my thought was along the lines of the fact that it's up to you to do something for yourself, right? It's not about the fact that we want you to be better. It's not a fact that we want, we want everybody to do BJJ. Though I want everybody to do BJJ. But it's got to be because you want to do it, right? That the why behind it has to be because you actually want it.
And as discussed in the past, there's a bunch of people who don't want that for themselves because they don't even know what they want. So how can they get better if they don't know what they want to get better at? And therefore, where they failed over years and years and years and years and years in this moment is because they don't even know how to do it for them. So do it for someone else.
There you go.
Do it for the team. We've
Do
talked
it for the
about it in the
team. Yep,
past for sure. I
exactly.
mean,
Yep,
like, if you can't figure out how to do it for you, do it for others.
yep. And this is a recurring theme. I guess we say this pretty often, in the fact that, if you can't do it for yourself, do it for others. But the you will lead yourself down a path, and you have to actually lead yourself down a path. It can't be a or I can't say you can't. It is maybe more effective to do it yourself, but it also sometimes is required to follow others. And that will then teach you the skills you need in order to lead yourself.
Yeah, and you can hybridize the model. I
Yep.
mean, you can touch points out there where someone's inspiring or someone's leading or someone's mentoring you in whatever the skill set or the thought construct or whatever. You can touch on all of that stuff, but you can also rely on yourself. It's for you to figure out the balance, the correct balance on it's a solo mission versus it's a team mission. And by team, I mean not only are you doing it for you and for everyone who's watching you do it, they you're encouraging others to maybe do what you're trying to do. So there's you, there's the team, and then there's all of the touch points all around you, either on the team or just on the periphery of the team, that can help calibrate you as well. This isn't just like all the weight of the world is on one individual's shoulders and they have to figure it all out by themselves. It can be that.
Yeah.
But you can find the right balance for you by hybridizing the model.
And that's why I was going to get back into that, is that's Kuzushi. That's finding the balance. That's finding your time. But that all starts back what we said at the very beginning, is that you have to know you're either out of balance to begin with in
Well,
order to find your balance.
You have to put yourself out of balance to find your balance.
Exactly.
Because if you're just standing there balanced, you got it all figured out.
Yeah, everything's good to go.
Everything's
Yep.
good. I'm good.
Yep.
I know everything. I invented BJJ.
I was a badass, right? I was, or I actually believed at one point in time that I was one hard dude.
Well, we
right?
all do at some
And we
point,
all
you
do
know?
at some point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But until you get shown by a 16-year-old girl that you are not a hard dude,
Or whatever.
or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
By
There's a point.
whoever or whatever. By the dog around the corner.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
you think you're pretty bad until the dog's chasing you up the street.
You get treed by a dog,
And
yeah.
you're yelling for your mom. Right? Now you're a badass. You're crying.
Exactly.
And so you're right. Look for people who can help you understand how the world turns, not just external to you, but internally within you. And that's kind of what we do over here to some degree. We talk about these kind of subjects, not just you and I, but the guest panel, et cetera. And I think it's been pretty clear to date that I'm a fan of external improvements and internal improvements. And it's for each person to figure out their own personal sweet spot, the ratio, the hybridized approach to improving that external and that external. Each moment is different. Each day is different. Each focus is different on that hybridized shifting of moving that, okay, now I'm focusing on this, now I'm focusing on that. It should never go static because we're always adjusting every day. So why would your model remain rigid? You have to dial into the nuance of you and how you're improving or backsliding.
Well, yeah, we talked about this yesterday a little bit, is the fact that you have to take those times, those moments to go, oh, I have achieved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Brief moment. Like, okay, I've done some things. Cool. Move forward. Or I haven't done anything. Okay, move forward. Right? There's always times where you have to reflect, and I think those are the times where you find Kuzushi. That's when you find your balance, is when you actually look, when you intentionally take the time to look,
so
recognize it, and then move forward.
I agree to some degree. I agree that that's what you have to do as an individual. But we all know, you and I know anyway, how Kuzushi works. It requires a partner.
Exactly.
And so, like Chance Burroughs at one point probably thought that he had a lot of things figured out until he started
100%.
dancing with a partner and realized that he didn't understand Kuzushi.
Yep.
And so that's the idea. If in isolation you're working on your external and internal environments and you feel like you've got a pretty good balance and you feel like you've got some things figured out, that's good. That's great. That's actively participating in your own growth. However, It ain't growth. It ain't even a thing until you go out and contextualize it against something else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could find yourself in a fantasy world where you've built yourself up into something that you're just not. And so, and this is for everyone out there, myself included. I have to check in with people who I think are either inspiring or good to go or doing it right or however we want to term it. I have calibrations out there that I yardstick myself against, which is mandatory. You can't
Yeah.
do this in isolation thinking you got it all figured out.
Well, that's where you get what is it, McDojo?
Yeah, for sure.
That's where you get those masters thinking that they can bend energy, and
Yeah, that's right.
because they're sitting in an echo chamber. And how easy is it to find an echo chamber?
Yeah, I know, right?
Super
So
easy.
easy.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to actively challenge yourself. If everything you say and everything you do, everyone's nodding with you, find somebody that isn't.
None of my friends agree with me.
There you go. There you go.
I don't want yes men around me.
Exactly.
I just don't. I'm not interested in that.
I-
Fortunately, I say fortunately or eventually, I'm not sure which one it is, fortunately or eventually, if they're even part of what I'm about to say. All I do know is that I find myself right now surrounded by good people
Mhm.
who cut me some slack, but not a lot of slack.
I think
And
it's
so I'm
grace,
held accountable.
not slack.
Oh, maybe it's grace not slack. I don't know what it is, but all I know is I'm surrounded by good people who keep me legit.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important, like I feel like I'm being held to a legitimate standard to some degree, but that's cuz again, I've got people around me who will call me out on my nonsense. And so that's the opposite of an echo chamber.
Exactly it. One of the things, like when I first released from the military and I was starting to see a psychologist, um, that I didn't do very well with, but he basically gave me all sorts of slack. Right? I was, I'm really
Mm,
angry, and he's like, oh, well, okay, well, don't do the thing that makes you angry. Well, I don't like being in crowds. Oh, well, don't go in crowds.
right.
Like stuff like that. And then
Bro.
and I mean, for some people, they need that, right? They need
Now did they
they need that
though?
safety.
Did they though?
I think
I mean, it
initially,
would be convenient.
I think it's as
No
a
one
stepping
needs.
stone. Let me put it that way,
We
as a stepping stone to
want.
build. We want things. Yes, you're right.
Yes.
And even that right there, you're challenging my thought process right off the bat, which is exactly what I wanted. And my next doctor, the one that I actually found that I'm still working with, she challenges me every single time.
Well, that's good.
Every single time we have a session, I'll say something. I'll be like, "Oh, I'm doing really well with this," and she'll be like, "How well? When was the last time you tested that? What
Hmm.
have you been doing here? What have you been doing here?" There was at one point, I forgot that we had an appointment, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I can't make it to an appointment." She's like, "Well, why not?" And I'm like, "I'm in the middle of Costco." She's like, "Oh, good exposure. Work on that." I was like, "Frick, okay, cool, yeah, I will." But it reminded me that hey, this is a learning experience. Use it as such, rather than just going through it like it's a
Oh
without
yeah,
thought.
it's
Just
yeah. I mean, it's not a chore.
yeah,
It's supposed to be a lesson.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing to be challenged. And if there are people challenging you, work at it. Like think about it.
Forget about work at it. That's guaranteed. That's not even part of the conversation. What you should be doing is thanking them.
Thanking them, yes.
Reach out and freaking thank them. If you don't understand how the planet turns in respect to this subject, when someone challenges you, if you don't thank them right then and there, it's only because you haven't been in the game long enough to understand how it's played.
Mhm.
But if you eventually realize that that's what happened, and a year or two later, you realize, oh, that's what happened. I owe that guy a solid. I owe
Mhm.
him a thanks. I owe him either an attaboy or a favor. That's what I do.
Mhm.
I say, now you owe me. Not a big deal. It's not like, you owe me your firstborn or whatever, but you owe me. You owe me the payback. The payback will be pay it forward.
Mhm.
Do it for someone else, but you got to understand what you're doing. You
Yeah.
got to understand how to play that game in order to play the game for someone else.
This is the thing. You got to build your own silver platter before you can show someone else how to do it.
That's right. That's
And you got
right.
to you got to fine tune it enough that other people want it before you start handing it
Well,
out
you
and
got to
showing
wave that
everybody
silver
else.
platter around a little bit
A
with
little
some
bit.
treats on it so
Yeah,
people can get excited about
exactly.
the baklava.
Exactly. Good old baklava. I haven't had good baklava in a while. I should seek some out.
and when it's legit, it's good.
So good. Yeah. I had some in Paphos on
Oh
Cyprus.
yeah, me too.
Dude, I mean, I
Yeah,
think we're in Cyprus a bit different
that's
time periods, but
yeah for sure. But I mean, Cyprus does good baklava.
mhm. So that's just about an hour. Any
Mm.
final thoughts on Kuzushi, on
We
anything
didn't
that we
even
went
really
over
talk
today?
about Kuzushi, to be honest.
We scratched the
I mean,
surface of it.
it was the start of the conversation.
Yeah. We're gonna get in deep later on. I have a some special people, some jujitsu
Mm.
people that we're gonna be
Oh,
talking, some like high level.
oh. The only way I'll be impressed by any of that, whatever, how many ever stripes a person's got on, the only way I'm going to be impressed if it's in respect to Kazushi at the start of a potty is the show opens with me looking at the screen and seeing someone fly through the air on the screen with a wicked judo throw, preferably landing on a wall and then sliding down it. That's how we should start that potty.
I will tell Alan to sort that out. He'll get
He'd
that
be the
done.
right guy for
No
it.
problem. Yeah. But yeah, any final thoughts? Anything before we shut her down?
Nah.
No, good to go.
Any
All right.
I guess tomorrow, Monday, we got, the Sebinator,
The
Days of Seb.
Sebinator, yeah. We got that. I believe, if I recall correctly, we have somebody with him, but I am not 100% sure.
Sure.
As my memory is not great. But either way, it'll be Sebinator for the
Check.
Days of La Voix on
Right
Monday.
on.
And then we got this upcoming week, we actually have quite a few guests scheduled
Okay.
in. So we're going to have a good week.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right. Well,
All
as
right.
we continue to learn, build ourselves, and grow our minds, you can do that here with us on the collective every day. So we'll see you here tomorrow. Chimo.
Chimo.